Hello and welcome to reactice. Our mission and passion at reactice is to share our thinking with you and to link research and practice. So we focus on a topical leadership or management issue in a very short, crisp, lively, unscripted debate. Thank you very much for joining this session. We will be discussing a very important topic today, and that is why we fail in how we develop our leaders. Joining me in the studio today is Lester and Imran. Thank you very much for joining. How are you guys?
Very well, thank you, Faisal. All the better for seeing you.
Thank you, Faisal. Can't complain either.
I hope you still have any complaints after this session.
Let's see.
So let's jump on to the topic. And this quite interesting study I was going through by McKinsey, and it suggests that only 11% of the executives who undergo leader development programs believe that the program contains any effect or is of any value for them and the organizations. So Lester, what's your take on that, and why you think is that's the case?
Well, my first reaction to that is one of feeling quite sad and depressed because people are obviously spending a lot of money on developing leaders and it's not having the impact that they want. So it's obviously not right. But we've been struggling with this issue for many, many years. We know the leadership development industry is worth a lot of money, Faisal. A couple of recent reports from training industry and McKinsey put it at 366 billion, 50 billion. It's a lot of money. If I can suggest, the reasons must be multiple. I mean, there's no simple, straightforward answer to what you're asking. But if I can suggest to go right back to basics and let's define, are we doing leader development or are we doing leadership development? That would be my start point.
Okay. All right. So if you allow me to say this, I mean, it looks like that you're taking the liberty of your being an academic background to use some semantics and playing around the words of leader and leadership development. So what's going on? What's the difference?
Okay, Faisal. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, you've got a good point. I think we are in semantics a little bit, but we have two words that do mean quite different things. Leader development is much more about individual leaders developing their competencies, skills, attributes, and qualities. We've been doing it for decades. We're still complaining about the results that we get, obviously. The sort of thing you do in development and assessment centres, and you measure individuals. Leadership development is much more of an organisational focus. It's much more about the collective capability. It's about succession and the pipeline. It's about dealing with leadership as a response to complex organisational challenges and issues. So it's a very different ballgame to leader development. I submit to you that they're quite different things.
All right, quite interesting. So let me direct my question to Imran. Do you think that there's an overlap between leadership development and strategy?
Thank you, Faisal. That's an interesting question. And I'll quote Kim and Mauborn here. They're researchers from INSEAD and primarily fundamentally strategy researchers. Their seminal work around blue ocean strategy has changed the way organizations look at strategy. And they have gone back and looked at this issue. And they have, again, produced a seminal piece of work around blue ocean leadership. And they say that there's a problem when it comes to leader development, connecting back to what Lester was saying. The way traditionally the business schools would go about it is doing competency-based analysis and then trying to create programs that would impact your values, qualities, and behavioral styles. Out of a 5 days intervention or maybe a month-long intervention or let's say 6 months intervention, hang on a minute. Can you really impact someone's qualities, values and behavioral styles through a leadership program or a leader development program? Not really. Then our other question is, do we really want to impact them or do we want to impact the change inside the organization, what they are doing? And if it is the latter, then it is not about the impacting their behavioral styles or the competency. It's about impacting their practices. It's about changing the acts and activities in which these leaders are involved. And if you get that right, you align it with the strategy of the organization, and you have a fantastic winning combination. I very much welcome views from Lester on this.
No, thank you, Imran. I completely agree with you. I think it's an interesting shift, Faisal, from, as Imran said, from the behavioural approach much more to practice. And I think the world of practice and the processes of leadership fits much more under leadership development. If you'll allow me, Faisal, there's one other little interesting point I'd like to mention. That is the work of Drath and colleagues. I mentioned Drath in an earlier episode of reactice, actually. You may remember the framework that they proposed was direction, alignment, and commitment. And again, as being the outcomes of leadership. So that approach, again, is much more around leadership development. It's about processes, practices, outcomes, as distinct from behaviors and competencies.
Very well indeed. So there's, I really get this point of the distinction between leader development and leadership development. So let's try to summarize the key points here. Lester, what's your advice on then how should we develop the leaders? Because now we have understood that why we fail in developing them, but what's your advice?
Well, I'd go right back to basics, Faisal, and say, okay, what's the problem we're trying to solve in the first place? You know, what is the problem for which leadership or leader development is the solution or part of the solution? Let's be very clear about that. That's the first thing. And the second thing would be, you know, are we more in the field of leader or leadership development? Be clear about that. Be clear about your investment, and you've got a much better chance of getting the results that you're looking for.
Very well indeed. Thank you very much for joining us in today's session. Viewers, if you have any suggestions for any of our future videos, please do share your comments and suggestions at share@reactice.com. See you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.